All right, so this is the Travis County Utilities Corporation meeting. We'll get started with a roll call.
President Christina Rosales,
Present.
Vice President Cheryl Brown,
Present.
Director Ann Denton,
Here.
Director Jimmy Paver,
Present.
Director Wilma Roberts.
Present. We have a quorum.
All right, so next on our agenda, we'll get started with public forum, citizen communications. Is there anyone who is desiring to discuss any items this morning?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Great. Agenda item number 3. This is the there are a couple items: approval of the minutes from the February 9th regular meeting and approval of the minutes for the April 7th, 2022 meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review those in the board packet?
Yes.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the 2 sets of minutes on the consent agenda.
Thank you. All in favor?
All right.
Is there a second?
Yes, it was Ms. Brown.
So we have approved. I'm sorry, did we approve both of those documents? Okay. All right. So moving on to the regular agenda, we have an item on real estate development. Items you want to discuss?
Good morning, everyone. Quick update summary on Tech Ridge apartment homes. They are still under construction. We received our draw on time. They were good about requesting their money on time and moving through their construction. We were in the 60s, I believe we're in the high 60s last month as far as completion percentage. We are at 77%. Well, as of March 31st, they were at 77% as of March 18th. So they're moving through the property very well. If you're driving north on 35 before you get to Tech Ridge, it looks like you're going to drive right into the apartments. And they look very nice, and I think it's going to be a beautiful property when it's finished. Southwest Apartments, we had a memorandum of understanding approved by the TCFC board on 4/7. The current information is there for you as far as the number of units and the unit mix breakdown. With the memorandum of understanding approved, we will be moving on toward the development partners, getting their financing lined up, and then moving forward to closing on the transaction.
And I wanted to give you an update. So what we plan on doing is presenting the documents to the board at the next board meeting. I believe that's June the 4th. They want to close in June, but obviously we've got to get the documents approved first. And then my attorney is actually going on vacation after that, and we'll be back June 27th. So I anticipate the closing date to be shortly thereafter, probably sometime in July. So
I just wondered what, so the documents that were pulled together are what? That need to be reviewed by the board.
So the documents, so you're going to have the ground lease, which is part of the transaction. Basically, the outline of our arrangement, which is actually what the memorandum of understanding is, how we're going to be compensated, etc. So those are the basic documents that the board will be looking at.
Onboardables.
We previously had some of you approved, so it'll just be codifying that arrangement.
Yeah,
I definitely didn't put them on board.
I think you put it on the website because we were talking about it wasn't there.
To
Because
close
of the attachment to the.
Yeah, I'll have to check and see.
Okay, because they might need it to
It
be
just seemed
cleared
longer
up
than
now.
that.
for the whole process.
No, from the
Um,
time of the memorandum of
I mean, I don't have it, so.
understanding.
Right.
Um,
You know, of course, we can
I
do
don't
our
know.
part.
I could,
We are doing our part.
just email it to
However,
Omar.
There's a
Just get in
lender
the email to
involved.
Omar so we can pull it up right
And
now.
that lender kind of controls and dictates when things are gonna close. However, just yesterday, they called up and said, we're ready to close, which we were, unaware.
Scan it into him
And
now.
so, I mean, that's great news. And so we're moving to get that done and doing our part once we do that. And that's the timeline to get that done. And we will certainly move as fast as we can to get that done.
Yeah, I mean, I would just encourage you to, if there's something that's waiting for board approval, that's slowing the process down.
Yeah.
We can always do a board.
Sure, and we appreciate that, certainly the developer appreciates that, because that does streamline the process and get it done. So, yes, thank you for that.
But the only concern I would also have is that if we had the MOU, looked like we could have gotten a draft prepared, with some agreements, and if there's some modifications, those tweaking and changing things, how does that process work?
So, yeah, we could have probably gone straight into the documents. However, this is kind of, has been a very unusual deal. The developer has not followed kind of the standard procedure. We were waiting on a term sheet coming from Wells Fargo, which would have been an indication that the lender is ready to go. We still have not received the term sheet at this point. However, they say they're ready to close and they're going straight to their docs. So we were kind of caught off guard. I guess we didn't want to spend the money to do that if we didn't know we had a deal. And of course, now we've been told yesterday, oh, we have a deal and we're ready to close. So, we did it as quickly as we could. There was probably some poor communication on the developer's part that they were ready to go.
So I guess the question that I have is, in the past, how do we properly because I guess it's not a concern, but my thought is if we are just going through the MOU and just a summary, will we have to discuss the details of what it is that's actually being brought forward? Because it feels to me like the assumption is it's going to be approved by the board next meeting, and I don't know if that's really true, right? Without having to dig into or really understand what it is that you're seeking approval.
And so the process that we took is we presented this transaction to the real estate committee. And then from there, we went to the board and said, here's the MOU. So it was discussed in the real estate committee. Then went to the board approved that. And so those again are the outlines of the business point. And then the next step is really just to codify the documents in order to close. So, I'll be happy to change that process if something works better.
I think what Mr. Brown is suggesting is maybe you want to give a heads up, send the MOU out of the document that you're working on to the board so they can review it. This board may not have seen the entire document. Okay, so they may need to see it. I know Ann and I, we were on that board when we codified it, but the MOU, but they need a heads up before everything is finalized and give them time to read. Okay.
So you have premium members essentially. We're not really familiar with it.
Right.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Makes sense to me.
So, when it was approved by the board, the MOU, send it back out again.
So I think what we can do is probably
summarize the key points to be identified in the MOU. I mean, it is fairly dry language. We could probably just highlight what you already kind of endorsed as far as the MOU, just for the purposes of sort of bringing certain things to your attention. But we certainly can do that in advance of the next meeting.
I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, something like that.
Lamar County Lane, another multifamily, 63, was 325 units, 163 at 80% of that area median family income, 162 at market. We've got some studios, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units in this property. The development status is that a memorandum of understanding was executed by all parties back in September of 21. Since that time, the developer's been in process of applying to farm financing to HUD via their 221(b)(3) program. Recent update, that's essentially where we're at. Okay. Anytime you're applying through HUD for one of these programs, it takes an exceedingly long period of time. But Robert said he does have some updated information.
So approximately 2 weeks ago, the Bercy Chin Group, which is the primary developer on this transaction, reached out to me and said that they were ready to close on their equity portion by August of this year. Still not the financing with HUD. And so they said, well, what we would like to do is finalize the MOU, which has previously been approved, by, hopefully May. And of course, talking to my attorney, Jim Plummer, he indicated, we'll certainly do, what we can. I do not believe that we're going to have those documents available for the June meeting. Based on what you talked about. So this is probably going to roll into July. Again, I would use, your suggestion on this one as well. Of course, these deals have been working for over 2 years, and I know you're coming into it right in the middle and going, what's this deal? So we'll do a better job of just dropping back and doing the background, just starting over with the whole transaction, even though the MOU has been approved. And we'll present that at the next meeting.
Anything else?
So what I did want to mention that we have 3 transactions that I'd like to discuss with the real estate committee meeting, the TCFC real estate committee meeting. That would be the Casey Bridge, which is something that's previously been presented to the board that is in a stall. We have Blue Ridge development, which was a bond and 4% deal, which did not get a favorable lottery ball. And so we are converting it to a TFC transaction. We're moving very rapidly to get that done. The developer has to come up with $250,000 to secure the land. So they want kind of a general understanding of what, we would be in agreement of doing. And so I'd like to present that to the real estate committee and hopefully subsequently provide an MOU. And we may need to have a special meeting in order to do that. So that's another one. And then there's a third one that's called Real Street that is just at very early stages. And it's very complex. And I think it's worth just kind of discussing where we're at and what we know at this point, which is very little. But, again, giving you a kind of a snapshot of where it's located, who the people are, what we're trying to get accomplished, and kind of direction. Oh, well, that sounds like something we should be, pursuing, go and do that. So 3 things. And so at some time, if we can look at everybody's schedule, that's on the real estate committee meeting, see what would work. So.
Robert, were you gonna mention about, Andre's deal in terms of talking to the real estate committee about it?
Well, and that is, and see, so I referenced it as the name of the street.
Oh, okay. I was
Instead of the developer's
okay.
name.
Yeah.
And so it's one and the same.
Okay,
You're talking about.
Yeah, that's right.
Connor
That's right.
Kenny's
Mhm.
deal? Yes.
So I just want to add a little bit. So this is the complexity is because you were talking, there is service provider. The county has been moving forward with, they did a summit last year on homelessness and wanted to provide PSH, which is permanent supportive housing for homeless individuals. So they are using ARPA funds to ideally support the development of PSH housing. So essentially, they need to partner with someone, obviously, to make the deal work. They've been talking with the county for quite some time, and they will actually be meeting with the county on next week, actually, to update them on where they are with respect to their discussion about the project. So there's obviously a gap, and there's a need to potentially use the PFC structure for that purpose. So it does have a lot of moving parts. I'm going to sit in on the conversation with the county. I think it's next week, or the 10th. So to find, to just hear what's being discussed and what the expectation is. But it is an opportunity. I mean, the yield that there's quite a gap in terms of providing funds for service delivery, which I think the expectation is that we would forego what we typically would receive for that purpose. I would obviously be up to the board to decide, but we are working through that. But I just want you all to know that that item is going to be at the commissioner's report next week, just to update them on the developer, to update them on where they are in discussions with us, essentially. And I can send you all that information if you're interested in listening in on that. Just additional information about that.
Okay. And real quick, this Crescent Village is, they contacted me about 2 weeks ago. They provided me with some preliminary information. They were going to get me more information, and I have not heard from them. I did want to put it just on the pending list, potential deal, and I've got to circle back with them and see if they're still interested in moving forward, but put it on the list. So yeah, that's it.
So in summary, we've got 4 PFCs in the pipeline at one stage or another county.
Including that one, yes, that is correct.
And the beautiful thing for me about PFCs is that we set aside half the revenue.
And all we got to do is get them closed.
That's why I'm like,
Yep.
why don't we close this?
So as we talk about potential deals.
Yeah.
What about, Samsung is going up there to Taylor. Travis County backs almost up to it, within 5 miles of where Samsung is going. So I know what's the status of working with Williamson County or working with some developers in that area, because I know they have a big interest up there to do some things.
And certainly that is a great opportunity. And you did point out that the issue is that we operate in Travis County and it is in Williamson County. And so we would have to kind of create a, dialogue with Williamson County as far as how we might be able to help in that process. Don't underestimate the ability of developers to create something. They are working on it right now. It's just we need to collaborate and see how it is that we can be part of that growth, even though it's outside Travis County.
And the only reason why I mentioned that is, we've got to find some funds to help support these organizations, you know, specifically with the hits that we've taken in the other developments. And so seeing the deficit, so we've got to try to get as much as we can going right now.
That's part of that statement of we got to get these closed.
Yeah.
Because it does produce money.
Yeah.
So yes.
Well, and the property that's at the Elgin portion of Travis County is not far from Samsung. In fact. So that's probably closest to Samsung that would be applicable in this case currently, yeah, as far as potential deals.
Okay, well, speaking of those deals and the set aside that Ann is interested in, we can move on to the next agenda item. Talk about the set aside ad hoc committee meeting that we had. And you want to provide some?
I mean, I can start in some way, you can.
Sure. Yes, and that committee was Ann and me, so Ann will do the summary.
Right. We had a Zoom meeting, and we sort of went through the reasons for set aside, the committee for set aside. Weekly affordable units, we have the definition of that. And at this point, we're looking at the possibility of doing deals with community-based organizations, so people who are developers or organizations that are deeply connected with the community. And we're looking at Omar and different people have been good about sending us sample RFPs to look at, and that's kind of where we at with next steps.
Yeah.
What are you at?
No, I think you covered the summary of what we discussed, but I think just for more context, we talked about, you know, this set aside should be mission oriented. So while we're trying to close these deals, that a lot of these units are, you know, market rate just below market rate, you know, focusing on the rate of needs. We thought some of the ways we approach those deals should be not necessarily just about the units, but about who's living there and what is the structure, what are the structure of those deals and the partners where we have that aligned mission. Because a lot of the time, you know, the developers don't necessarily have that same exact mission that we do. Which, yeah, so yeah, thank you, Omar, for sending the RFP samples. But we're thinking about, you know, there are community land trusts in Austin, there's mission-oriented developers, nonprofit developers who may be interested in receiving some of this funding to produce that mission-oriented housing. Yeah.
Yeah, we pulled up the policy statement that currently exists, because maybe there was some thought about we may want to think about the language maybe a little bit, but you know, obviously this is an informative stages, but I just wanted to let folks see what the policy statement was for
Right, that was
oh shoot, okay, yeah, you can take that.
But there's another.
There is.
We have a prior statement.
Yeah,
that talks
That's
about-
correct. This is the wrong one. So.
I mean, I think that, you know, I'm really glad that we have the set aside and focus on these affordable units. I think that allows us to, you know, operationalize the county officials have told us is a priority for that. The mission needs it.
No, that's a question. So another way to-
Just go back.
I have a question. What's the definition of deeply affordable housing?
So it is affordable to 30% AMI. Yeah, and that's where the
So baseline, but
yeah,
Yeah.
where it's 30%, no more than 30% of that income level, which is the greatest need. I mean, by far, if you look at the National Low Income Housing Coalition, they map out where the gap is, that is by far the greatest need everywhere in the country, but especially now.
How is the interest rate going to affect us now if the Fed's just bumped up? 0.5, yeah, 0.5%.
So that's definitely gonna have an impact on development. It's gonna make it harder for you to make the numbers work. It's gonna increase the gap. We already have an issue, as we've all heard, about construction costs and supply chain issues, with it going up 0.5%, 50 basis points. That means you're gonna be able to borrow less money than you were previously able to do. So that's gonna widen that gap. It's gonna make it more difficult to reach down to a lower level with regard to the rents. There's a number of deals on bond 4% have actually approximately 25% have not gone forward because of these issues. And so it's just making, creating affordable housing more difficult. But, it just requires more innovative thought.
And so, Robert, you're saying that the county's focus on figure affordable units is making affordable housing more difficult. Is that what you just said?
So the focus on deeply affordable housing units is what?
I'm asking you, I'm just clarifying I'm trying to understand what you said. You said, I think I heard you say that the county's focus on deeply affordable units is making affordable housing more difficult to develop. Is that what you said?
No, I'm saying that the overall economy and what's happening out there is making it more difficult to produce affordable housing, period,
In general, okay.
in general.
All right,
Yes.
I'm just clarifying.
All right.
That's the picture. We just have to be creative.
Anything else from the Ed Committee? I don't have anything else. Okay. Moving right on to new and unfinished business. Is there any discussion about other issues or concerns? All right, so do we have a motion to adjourn?